This video is intended for people who are going to make a counter-argument and know something about the physics.
Please, Gary, give me some warning before you're going to crack a joke like that.
So I shouldn't have to explain path length differences.
That I had to explain to you? You mean the path length differences that I had to explain to you? You're a piece of work, you are.
But the simple truth is the pattern is fundamentally just created by measuring those distances.
Yeah, but path length difference has always been mainstream theory. All you've done is pinch their theory, take the waves away and say, well, it's path length difference, but not waves. It's now me broken photons now, me broken photons. No, it isn't, Gary. You fucking dickhead. Broken photons is a fucking stupid concept which just doesn't pan out in reality. You keep talking about reality, but you want to fucking try it someday. You might be fucking surprised. Unfortunately, today's the day I'm going to have to start showing you a little bit of reality. You're in for a shock, you moron.
So if it's a single slit, I just measure this distance. It's 2 point sources. I just divide how many wavelengths fit inside of there, and that'll tell me exactly how many of these nodes I'm going to get on a equidistant line.
Well, there are several problems with that, Gary. Mainly that it's wrong. Where do I start? Well, for one, the number of wavelengths in that single slit space is different to the number of fringes in that curved space. Is different to the number of fringes on that curved line. Doing your string thing with notches on, I used real tape measure so it would be accurate. You actually get double the number. You actually get double the number of fringes, not the same number. Then you have another problem, Gary. The number of fringes that fit on that curved line, the number of fringes and the size of the fringes changes when you remove the impediment. The number of small fringes and the size of the small fringes changes quite dramatically when you remove the impediment. So you still have those outside surface distances that fits a certain number of wavelengths in that you say dictates the number of fringes on that curved line.
This is the sort of width of slit we're talking about now. You see the hair? Very wide slit, isn't it? Now I've removed the hair altogether. Fringes are finer now. I can't really measure them, but they're a lot finer. I've had to zoom in to see them. You can see they're finer than the original fringes, can't you? Yeah? They're finer than the original fringes, aren't they?
And yet, when you remove the impediment, the size of them can halve, depending on the size of the impediment. With a small impediment in place, if you remove the impediment, they shrink. If you remove the impediment, the small fringes shrink. Now, isn't that strange? You remove the impediment and the small fringes shrink. The small fringes that you said were dictated solely by the outside surfaces. Can't be true, can it? Because when you remove the impediment, they shrink. How did that happen, Gary? It's almost as if you've never done any checks. It's almost as if Gary didn't know that. Almost as if he never does any experiments.
It'll tell me exactly how many will end up on this surface.
No, it won't. Not without a lot of adjustment.
That's where the two lines have the biggest difference.
Whoopee, you got that bit right.
And if I made a string, just tied a string onto these two things and moved the string with notches on it.
Which Gary's never thought to do in all this time. Just never bothered to do it. He's just guessed what would happen, and he's been guessing wrong.
With the notches of this wavelength here, when I get to this top, I'll end up with half the notches on one string, half the notches on the other string. And actually, if I did have a 0.5 remainder, half of 14.5 would be 7.25.
And because he's never actually done this experiment, he's just talked about it, he just guessed what would happen. He's just assumed what would happen would be what suited his purpose. Facts didn't matter, details didn't matter, accuracy didn't matter, reality didn't matter, nature didn't matter. All that mattered was that Gary could say, well, I think this is what's going to happen, and I'm going to go with that. Never bothered to say, my guesses are good enough. No, they're not good enough, Gary. Your guesses are shit. I keep telling you, your guesses really are shit. That's why I offer you this challenge today to shave your head bald. If you can do this experiment for once on camera, let's see you do it. And if it doesn't get the results you've been predicting, shave your head bald, or at least have the integrity, the honesty to say, look how fucked up big style. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry for slandering Walter Fend, and sorry for slandering Steve and every fucker else. Because you have been wrong, Gary. The only person who's going to be surprised about that is you. and whatever idiots have been following you and thinking you're great. Because you got to be a complete fucking pillock to think that you are worth following for anything other than comedy value. I would highly recommend following Gary for comedy value.
So here, at a point where I have constructive, because they're both equidistant.
Oh, but the point I was intended to make just then, before I got distracted, was that all the other things that follow from his guess that the fringe is going to be equal, just by virtue of using a piece of string around a curved surface, all this guesswork that follows is thrown into chaos. It's even more meaningless than it was before, because it's now founded on something that even he cannot deny when he actually tries it, is a flawed starting point. His starting point is that these fringes have to be equal, starting from the 90-degree point, working backwards. Therefore, you supposedly get these two things, which his stupid explanation about how the central maxima comprises that and a dot in the middle, and it makes one big... It just gets uglier and stupider, and it gives you a headache trying to analyse shit. It's like if I give you a tangled, knotted ball of sticky, different coloured tapes and say, right, sort that out in the dark with your hands behind your back. That's what it's like trying to sort out Gary's shit, because that's just how chaotic his ideas are. Only he knows why they're supposed to make sense. Only he can deny reality to make these things make sense in his head. We can't deny reality. We have to live in a world where reality is real. We have to live in a world where we know that string idea doesn't make even patterns, and therefore everything that follows from it is bullshit.
The fact is they're not. Okay, the fact is that the notches won't line up.
And that makes you an idiot.
So even though I'm going to have a false center there, and the trick is that is a false. In all the other comparisons, you're comparing two lines that are moving in the same direction. And only, in this case, inside this tiny millimeter of distance.
It's not as tiny at the screen, it's bigger, it's expanded. You're confusing two situations here.
And the real pattern starts here.
And you've jumped to this wrong conclusion because of your misunderstanding, and you've jumped to this wrong conclusion simply because you also jumped to the wrong conclusion that the fringes would all be the same width from the 90-degree point to this 0-degree point. And you're wrong, and you're wrong, and you're wrong. They are different widths. You decided how many fringes were going to be on that curved line, and you decided that they were going to be equal. But they are not equal. But they are not equal. Nature doesn't make them equal. They are not equal. Geometry doesn't make them equal. They are not equal. Only you think they're equal. Walter Fenn didn't make them equal, did he? And you laughed at him the other week. You laughed your socks off at him when he was the one who was right. You were the one who was wrong. You were the one who was wrong. You were the one who was wrong. I thought somebody will tell you. In the week that's elapsed since then, I thought that one of your fans would have enough integrity, enough intelligence to point out to you, Gary, you've made a mistake here. Don't laugh at Walter Fenn. Walter Fenn is right. It's Gary who's wrong. The fringe widths aren't the same. The fringe widths aren't distributed evenly all the way around that curved surface. The curved surface does not solve the problem that you think it solves. You think it solves the problem of the fringes on the outside getting wider and wider and wider when projected on a flat surface. But it doesn't totally solve that, because they do get wider and wider anyway, even when projected on a curved surface. It simply lessens how much they expand. And then there's another problem after that. The fact that nobody's ever seen these fringes anyway. To all intents and purposes, they don't exist. No one will ever show you them. You've never seen them. I've never seen them. Walter Fenn has never seen them. They're simply theoretical. They don't exist. It's a ghost. You are chasing a ghost because it suits your purpose. You are chasing a ghost that suits your purpose. That's how wooey your so-called science is. You are the woo master. You are the high priest. You are the person who should be wearing a dog collar.
And here. And this just fills in the blank. The size of the laser, essentially, the spread of the laser beam going right through the middle fills in this difference.
But seeing as you sometimes say the fringes are kind of cigar-shaped or elliptical, other times you say they're more like bars, I think we can both acknowledge that sometimes they do have an elliptical-ish shape, an eye shape. You've described it a number of different ways. But in this instance, where they're cigar-shaped, eye-shaped, elliptical-shaped, how can you say that you're joining two elliptical-shaped things with a little bit of light in the middle that you say is a millimetre or so wide, how can you say that you joining those two elliptical shaped things to make one bigger elliptical shaped thing? Nobody can do that. It doesn't make sense, Gary. It just doesn't stand up to scrutiny. You can't take two ellipses and join them together. Nobody can take two ellipses and join them together with a tiny little thing in the middle. And hey presto, you've got one bigger ellipse. It would look crap, wouldn't it? We would say, well, that's not right. Because we could do the experiment at a lower intensity and say, well, that's two ellipses joined together with a little dot in the middle. Oh, and supposedly filled in by the light from the middle of the slit. So, it just happens to all work out perfectly smoothly to make a perfectly shaped, smooth. It's not some weird shape made up of all these three different things. That, plus a dot in the middle, plus light from the middle. It just happens to make this perfectly shaped, smooth central maxima of a single slit that we do see. Gary, it doesn't look anything fucking like what you're describing. You're a fucking prick if you genuinely think that. Anybody out there who thinks that Gary is speaking truth here, just go and try it. Make a single slit pattern. Make a nice, decent, wide one, which is very, very easy. So you can have a good look at that central maxima and just really inspect it closely for even the slightest sign of it being made up of that plus a dot and plus some light from the middle, all miraculously joined together to make one incredibly smooth and homogeneous mix. It doesn't fucking exist. You've got to be off your fucking rock to believe it. Stupid ideas. It's fucking stupid ideas. I'm becoming shocked how stupid an ideas can get. Sorry, I'm halfway through eating a butty here. It's a sandwich in a butty. But it's not, is it? That's not what the double width central maxima is in a single slit, is it? No, it's not. This is wishful thinking on your part. It's just you desperately trying to make your theory work based on a fundamental mistake of thinking that all the fringes would have to distribute around that curved line equally, and they're not equal. They're different widths. So you've made a mistake, Gary. Sorry, you have. Embarrassing.
And so that's why the center maxima is twice as big, a little bit more than twice in most cases.
Bullshit. I was eating a Whatsapp when I heard that. Bullshit, Gary. Don't make the lie worse by exaggerating it even further. Stupid. Oh.
Then the rest of the nodes is because it's actually a fake.
It's a fake. You're the fucking fake. What the fuck are you talking about? A fake.
It's really two separate nodes that started at the right distances, where this is a straight line, the shortest distance for this line, less than the shortest distance for that one, obviously. And that's where the node actually started, and because it started with a 0.5 down here.
If you say so. But no, it's not.
You can understand it's probably starting with a 0.5 at that end, and then you start drawing your nodes.
The wrong size. Do you like that? And then you start drawing your nodes, and he starts drawing them all the wrong size, because he's convinced they're supposed to be equally spaced. And they're not. That's not how nature works. That's not how geometry works. You claim to be better at maths than me. I don't fucking see any evidence of that. I'm the one who's passed tons of exams that involve maths. When I said I'm no good at maths, I didn't mean I'm as bad as you.
So they've implied that this is an infinite pattern.
No, you guessed it was an infinite pattern and wasted 10 years of your life thinking it was an infinite pattern because you're a fucking dickhead. Nobody else has implied it. Nobody else has told you that. It's just you guessing, just you jumping to conclusions, the very thing you accuse everybody else of. You're a prat.
Which it certainly is not. There's a specific number of nodes, and the number of nodes, the number of fringes, will be completely dictated by how many wavelengths fit between the distances.
And yet, that isn't true, because all we have to do is remove the impediment, and hey presto, those differences don't matter anymore. Suddenly, the fringes shrink. How did that happen? Could it be that your theory was wrong? Could it be that your theory was wrong?
So if I made a double slit experiment instead of a single slit, you can understand.
I wish you understood. Stop telling us what we understand and don't understand when it's you who doesn't understand anything.
4 surfaces now. So the single slit is really the 2-surface experiment.
That gives a different answer than Gary predicts.
two sources of scatter.
Is that why we call you a scatterbrain?
Two sources, and this is really the four-surface experiment, and all you're really doing is saying these two outside surfaces, a lot of wavelengths fit inside of them.
Oh, nobody ever realised that. Yes, they fucking did. They've known for over 100 years, you prick.
That means small nodes. These two interior surfaces have a short distance. That means they're going to create the envelope, the big pattern.
Exactly what I was trying to tell you last May the 3rd when you deleted my message saying it was dopey and irrelevant. It wasn't dopey and irrelevant, was it? It was you who was dopey and irrelevant, and still is.
And where you can line up 3 or 4 of these vectors, where you're in phase over these 4 sources, that's where you get a bright.
3 or 4, make your mind up. In other versions of this, you say you have to have all 4, but 2 is not good enough, 3 is not good enough, it has to be all 4. And if you do that, you don't get the pattern.
There is no destructive interference. There's been no real experiment done where they ever showed any light spot getting dark.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. That's taking the lie too far. Even I've done it. Even I've done it. Mindless Marbles has done it. Loads of people have done it because it's a very, very, very easy experiment to do. I've recorded it and I've taken into account all your excuses as to why it's an optical illusion, you think. And so I prevented the optical illusion by blanking off the parts that you said are giving that impression, the 4 times brightness alongside it. I blanked that off so we can look at just the parts that go dark and compare them A-B with both slits open or one slit open. And you were wrong, Gary. This experiment has been done time and time again. It must have been done a million times. That's how common this experiment must be. Certainly thousands. If you haven't done it, then shame on you. Shame on you for being such a lazy prick. No excuses other than that you were a lazy, thick bastard.
That is, if I covered one, like I open the slit, a certain amount of light hits the surface. No experiment has ever shown that if I open the slit, more light hits someplace. You know, like someplace that was dark, someplace that was light gets dark.
You got there in the end.
There's no experiment showing that.
Oh, just grow up. That's a preposterous lie. That's just shameful, laughable, beneath even you. Why would you lie about something so simple? I can understand you saying there's been no detector experiment. I today went through that and said he couldn't find evidence of it either, so good reason to suspect that that part is true. Fair enough, but not this. I today would say, you're talking crap, Gary. Any of us can do this within a few minutes of making the effort. It doesn't require any precision. It's very, very easy to block up one slit. Move an object into the side, into the way of the slit, and it changes from a single slit pattern to a double slit pattern. Other way around, actually, in that instance, I got mixed up. The single slit pattern, you can mark a place where it's light, unblock the slit, so it's back to a double slit pattern, and a place that was previously bright has gone dark. Then you can isolate that. You can zoom in, you can blow it up, do whatever you want. Really focus in on that part. Do everything you can to make sure you're only looking at that little spot, and then block it up again so it's back to a single slit and it goes bright again. Undo it and move the object out of the way so it's back to a 2-slit. It goes dark again. So interference does actually happen in the space between the screen and the slits. Now, that fact doesn't suit me any more than it suits you, Gary, because when Mindless Marbles pointed out that this is absolutely catastrophic for the surface theory, I was backing you up on this surface theory at first. When Mindless Marbles pointed it out and I thought about it, I realised, yes, he's right. The only explanation is that the interference is happening after the slits, between the slits and the wall. The very thing you say is impossible. Again, it turns out you were wrong. Now, isn't that a surprise? How did that happen? Could it be that Gary is a thick cunt? It's just possible. In fact, it's very possible. All the evidence is there. Again, you're confused.